What if everything you thought you knew about hip-hop's biggest power players was only the polished surface of a much darker empire? For years, whispers about late-night freak-off parties, hush-money payouts, and industry-wide cover-ups drifted through barbershops and backstage hallways. Most fans shrugged them off as gossip, until 50 Cent decided to fling open the back door and let the world peek inside. His latest leak, grainy but unmistakable, shows Sean Diddy Combs, a rumored trans ex-partner, and Busta Rhymes sharing the same velvet-roped corner of a party that feels more like a clandestine production than a nightclub. Nothing about the clip looks playful. Everything about it screams, "This is only the beginning." And once you see the beginning, you can't unsee the rest. The blast radius of that one leak was immediate. Overnight, social media feeds erupted with freeze frames and timestamp analyses as users tried to spot every familiar face lurking in the background. 50 Cent didn't just toss a match, he lobbed a lit stick of dynamite, teasing that he's been sitting on far more explosive receipts. And with Diddy already 6 weeks into a federal sex trafficking trial that threatens to bury his legacy under life in prison headlines, the timing couldn't be sharper. Yet, the trial is only one thread. As we pull, more names, more stories, and more hidden tapes start to unravel. But that was merely the opening act. The clip 50 released, allegedly filmed during one of those infamous freak-off gatherings, doesn't rely on rumor. It relies on visuals. Diddy reclines in a leather booth, Busta Rhymes flanks him, and a trans woman many believe to be Diddy's former flame stands close enough to hear every whispered joke. The energy is tense, almost staged, as if everyone knows the camera exists but pretends not to. Sources close to 50 say this snippet is just the trailer, and that his hard drives hold entire nights of footage. Meanwhile, fans remember why 50 has always declined Diddy's invitations, joking that he didn't want to be hugged from the front and the back. Suddenly, those old sound bites feel less like trolling and more like a coded warning. And if a single clip can shake an industry, imagine what an 8-episode Netflix doc could do. 50 Cent has already sold the project, tentatively titled Diddy Do It, to the streaming giant, promising unfiltered testimonies, leaked emails, and never-before-seen party tapes. Every executive in Diddy's orbit just felt a chill. But footage isn't the only fuel feeding this blaze. Enter Tony Newman, author, activist, and former escort who once worked Manhattan's late-night streets. Tony has been naming names since the early 2000s, but back then, her claims landed in tabloid margins. Today, with courtroom spotlights glaring, her voice hits different. She says she provided companionship, not only to Diddy, but also to LL Cool J, producer Mr. C, and a handful of other chart toppers. Some straight, some married, all supposedly living double lives. According to Tony, cease and desist letters poured in after her memoir dropped, each one threatening legal ruin if she didn't shut up and stay off YouTube podcasts. That legal squeeze only convinced her the men she outed had far more to hide than a one-night fling. She also describes an entire underground network of security friends who screened party guests, confiscated phones, and whisked away anyone who so much as tweeted an emoji from those velvet rooms. In her telling, these weren't casual meetups. They were high-budget productions with non-disclosure agreements as tight as the guest list. And if Tony's version of events sounds extreme, one eyewitness brings us even closer to the VIP rope. Big homie Double C, the kind of nightlife insider who knows every bouncer by nickname, claims he once coordinated security for Busta Rhymes. When promoters asked what Busta needed in his section, the rapper allegedly skipped the usual champagne wishlist and asked for fun boys. In club speak, that meant younger, pliable men who wouldn't flinch if the night turned experimental. Double C's story echoes across message boards and TikTok retellings. Busta didn't want bottle girls, he wanted guys. Combine those claims with Tony's accounts of Diddy and Busta sharing companions behind smoked glass doors, and the picture sharpens. If true, Busta wasn't just attending freak-offs, he was curating their guest lists, That alone could dent a reputation. But one celebrity's chaotic confession took the internet's interest from simmer to full boil. Actor and singer Orlando Brown has delivered more viral sound bites than chart hits, so when he once blurted out that he'd made love with Busta Rhymes, most listeners filed it under unhinged. But memory has a funny way of resurfacing when corroborating details appear. With Tony Newman's testimony and 50 Cent's footage leaking bit by bit, Orlando's long-dismissed story suddenly looks less like a clout grab and more like a fractured puzzle piece. In various interviews, Brown claimed he was invited by a trusted industry intermediary, passed around a VIP suite, and left feeling like a prop rather than a partner. Even if half his timeline is exaggerated, the skeleton matches Tony's and Big Homie's. Exclusive parties, selective guest lists, blurred power dynamics. The overlap forces fans to ask, if three unreliable narrators tell the same tale in different accents, maybe the story isn't unreliable at all. And speaking of narratives that once felt unreliable, Busta Rhymes has long presented himself as the alpha titan. Baritone growls, leather muscle suits, and no patience for questions about sexuality. In 2006, a male fan said Busta hurled a slur after a photo request. In 2007, Busta stormed out of a radio interview the moment the host mentioned homophobia in rap. At the time, the walk-off looked like tough guy theatrics. Now, it reads like someone afraid of a well-placed follow-up question. Psychologists call it reactive projection. The louder you deny, the more you might conceal. If Busta's attorneys ever thought they'd quash speculation with lawsuits, 50 Cent's leaks have flipped that strategy upside down. Because an aggressive cease and desist only invites the internet to say, "Show us what you're hiding." And that cease and desist tactic keeps popping up. Remember the Cassie Hotel incident? Reports claim Diddy forked over roughly $50,000 to hotel staff to delete incriminating footage of him rough-handling the singer in a hallway. If a single surveillance clip costs $50,000, imagine the price tag on gigabytes of VIP lounge video. Lawyers allegedly blasted Tony Newman's inbox with legal threats. LL Cool J's reps called her accusations pure comedy and promised a courtroom showdown if she repeated them on morning radio. Even Big Homie Double C says he was quietly pushed to retract his statements after a late-night phone call from industry execs. Legal intimidation can muzzle blogs, but it fails against court transcripts and sworn testimony. And every new day of Diddy's federal trial introduces fresh witnesses describing intimidation, violence, or hush money payments meant to wipe freak-off evidence off the map. But evidence has a survivor's instinct, and sometimes it ends up in the hands of someone who loves a good spectacle. Diddy's defense team can argue consensual swinger lifestyle all day, but they can't erase the calendar. Trial watchers expect prosecutors to rest soon, and rumor has it 50 Cent's documentary will land on Netflix the moment the jury vanishes into deliberation. Strategically, that's genius. If a verdict drops, public fascination spikes. If mistrial headlines appear, the doc promises tantalizing evidence the courtroom never heard. Either way, streams soar. Industry insiders whisper that 50 has multiple leverage points: raw footage, old security contracts, disposition transcripts, and NDAs that might become public record once introduced as documentary exhibits. The moment a defense attorney tries to spin an alibi, 50 can counterpunch with a pixelated receipt. That looming release date has everybody lawyering up. Yet one key figure has chosen a different tactic. Since the first week of trial coverage, Busta Rhymes has posted 0 Instagram flexes, skipped festival cameos, and declined every press request. For an artist who thrives on visibility, that silence roars. Tour staff reportedly received no-comment scripts in case journalists ask about freak-offs during backstage interviews. PR teams can craft statements, but they can't stop Twitter sleuths from recirculating that awkward dinner clip where Diddy grins, Busta hovers behind rapper Coi Leray, and Coi looks like she'd pay her own tab just to leave. Viewers caught a vibe, and vibes rarely whisper. Behind closed doors, insiders claim Busta's biggest fear isn't bad press, it's a subpoena. If prosecutors decide these freak-off parties served as illegal recruitment zones, any regular attendee could be called to testify. That possibility alone may explain the sudden vanishing act. But no vanishing act can hide forever, especially with the internet's memory measuring time in screenshots. So, here we stand, watching a courtroom drama on daytime news and a documentary countdown on streaming dashboards. If even half the leaked footage is real, reputations could crumble overnight. Maybe Diddy walks, maybe he doesn't. Maybe Busta resurfaces with a press conference denial. Or maybe 50 Cent's final episode drops the kind of evidence that ends careers in a single autoplay next episode. What seems certain is that hip-hop's open secret isn't so secret anymore. The question now, how deep does the rabbit hole go? And who else thought their VIP badge made them untouchable? Drop your thoughts below, smash that follow, and brace yourself. Because the next leak might not just be another party clip. It could be the tape that rewrites hip-hop history. And once it's public, no cease and desist can shove it back into the dark.